Hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming down early morning today. My name is Smiti. I'm one of the founders of Advantage Club, and today I'm going to be talking about driving recognition programs for a hybrid workforce. The theme of today's entire event is NexTech, adaptation towards innovation. So today's theme for me is also going to be how do we innovate more when we are driving recognition programs? How do we adapt to this changing world when we have some of the employees working from home, some working from office, some working hybrid, and just share my thoughts on what I have seen overall. So today's new age employee checklist is a little different than what, say, our parents or our grandparents used to look out for, right? Overall, if you look at your grandparents' generation, they used to work for survival. Our parents' generation used to work for security. But today's generation works primarily for a couple of things. One, they're looking for a good culture within the organization. They're looking for autonomy in the work which they are doing overall. And they don't want just to be yes people, like yes men or yes women to what their managers or their seniors are saying. They really want to understand why they're doing and what they're doing exactly. Third, they're looking for growth opportunities. They're not, they don't want mundane roles where there is no opportunity to grow. And if we look at interviewing candidates all the time, one of the largest reasons for people leaving is that they feel that there is no growth in their current company. They're looking for the right tools for the organization to help them grow and also learn. They're also looking for purpose within the organization, that what is the objective of me working here? What is the purpose of what I'm doing? And last and definitely not the least, they're looking for recognition. They're looking for credit for what has been done by them. So how do we build a recognition culture which is successful in that particular setup? So I'm going to split this in 4 pieces today. The first is that, first of all, you need to identify what are your requirements of the employees. That is, we identify employee needs first. Once you've identified employee needs, we execute those recognition opportunities. Once we've executed them, we actually understand responsibilities of, who's supposed to execute what. And once we have assigned those roles, then eventually we also have to identify the ROI of our programs and analyze those results. So my entire presentation is going to be split across these 4 parts, and I'm going to touch base on each of these pointers today. So let's first talk about identifying employee needs. What do our employees really need so that we can build the right set of acknowledgement solutions for that? So let's first talk about Maslow's hierarchy of employee needs. We always talk about human needs, but let's put it in a corporate perspective. The most basic level of need of an employee in any organization is survival. However, if I'm working just for survival or just for security, it does not necessarily mean that I am actually engaged in the organization. It simply means that I'm here just to earn money. I'm just here doing a 9-to-5 job, and then I don't care if I'm in this company or I'm in that company, which primarily means that I'm most likely disengaged. The next level is where I start feeling that I belong in the organization. And that's where we talk about belongingness as a trait which needs to be built within culture. When I feel that I belong in the organization, I feel that what I'm doing matters here. I feel that my peers, my colleagues, they matter to me. And if I leave this organization, I will not just be leaving a company, I will be leaving this amazing community where I feel that this is the right place for me. The second level on top of belongingness is importance, where I feel that, okay, my work matters here. If I leave this organization tomorrow, it's going to make an impact not only on me, but also on the company. So belongingness and importance are 2 major areas where the employee starts feeling more engaged in the organization. And that's where recognition drives a very major factor, because if I'm recognized constantly for the good work that I'm doing, I start feeling that this is my place, this is my company, and I don't want to leave this. Second, I'm important enough because I'm getting recognized for it. The highest level of engagement is self-actualization. Only, I think, 10% of people in your entire organization will ever achieve self-actualization, where I don't just feel that what can I do to grow, I also feel what I can do to help others grow. So I become more, effective in terms of leadership, in terms of growth of the organization. And of course, my growth directly links to the company's growth as well. That is the highest engagement factor, which can be achieved by any employee in the organization in terms of engagement. So this is an interesting, study which was done by Towers Perry and World at Work, where they identified that if you speak to businesses, 90% of companies will say that, hey, I am recognizing my employees. I am running a good rewards and recognition program. But you talk to employees, only 40% of employees actually feel that they have really been recognized by their managers. And ever since we've gone into this hybrid work from home, work from office, work from anywhere kind of a setup, it has become even harder because, you're not in an office setup, you're not seeing each other's faces. So you're naturally more disengaged and more disconnected with the organization than you would if you were, say, every day going to the office. And 65% of employees, according to the study, actually said that they have received no recognition in the past 1 year. So that's the situation we are in today. And that is why driving effective recognition programs has become the need of the hour ever since, post 2020. So what is job satisfaction really for an employee? What I've done is I've split job satisfaction predicators in 6 parts. Firstly, to feel satisfied in a particular job, I need to have a good morale. I need to feel that I am enjoying the work that I am doing. This is something which is good, exciting for me. Second, I need to feel that my organization recognizes me wherever recognition is due in the right manner, and it's fair. There's no biases. I feel that, okay, I understand what needs to be done to get recognized, and when I do that, I actually get the proper recognition. Third is, I feel that I'm more responsible in the organization. My job carries certain responsibility. My job is stimulating, my work is interesting, and that makes me feel more satisfied in my organization. Fourth is service quality, which is primarily having pride in your workplace. You could love your job, but you could hate your company. You could love your company, but you could hate your job. So, both are very, very different from each other. Pride in the workplace is usually defined in a way like, for example, I always say that I'm ex-Microsoft. Why do I say that? It primarily is because I had a good experience, a good employee experience when I was working with Microsoft. So I have that pride in the workplace, and that continues even after I leave that particular company. So that's what service quality is as a predicator to job satisfaction for any employee. Fifth is sense of belongingness, like I was talking about earlier, where I feel that my work, my ideas, and my inputs are really valued by my company. And sixth is self-esteem. Now, think of self-esteem in a way that when you wake up in the morning and you go to work, you have a certain ideology about how your day is going to be, how people are going to perceive you in the organization, how you're going to perceive other people in the company. So the way I interact with my colleagues and the way other people talk to me builds or reduces my self-esteem in the organization, which means that if there are behaviors happening in the company which is boosting my self-image, I naturally feel more satisfied in my organization. If I'm facing challenges every day when I go to work and I feel that, I'm feeling low, or, my self-esteem has been lowered, I naturally start feeling more dissatisfied and I start looking for more opportunities. So these are like the 6 predicators using which we should derive all our recognition programs, identifying those needs and then creating solutions to fulfill these needs. So how do we execute recognition? Now we've identified what our employees need. Now let's figure out how do we really drive the recognition program. So in a hybrid model, one of the most important things which needs to be done is digitization. You're not in office anymore. You're not completely, having employees in the office. So how do you recognize them? How do you constantly motivate them? You have to digitize. You need to replace all your physical certificates, all your physical gifts with digitized forms of, say, vouchers or points or anything, whichever is a digital mechanism to be sent directly via an email or comes within a platform, so that I don't have to worry about couriers, packaging, all of those messes, and it's really, really operationally challenging. I also need to automate my rewarding as much as possible. If you're driving birthdays now, it is really important to drive things like birthday, anniversary wishes. Like earlier in the talk also, if the CEO goes and then says happy birthday to the receptionist, it's like a really big deal, right? So if you're driving these recognition birthday, anniversary programs, doing that manually is another effort, because if there is one person in the organization responsible for driving birthdays, or maybe 2, 3 people for that matter, there will be a day in which either of these people or all of these people will not be available. And those people who get missed out for their birthdays and anniversaries will get disengaged, and your programs will start actually creating a negative impact instead of doing what they were supposed to do. So automate those, create structures in which automatically the birthday, anniversary gifts and wishes and all of that goes, wherever you can. If you can incentivize, if you can automate incentives, that also makes more sense, because if there are certain KRAs or KPIs which people are supposed to achieve, the moment they achieve it, they get incentivized like that. So instant recognition makes a much larger impact than, maybe waiting for a quarter to get an award, and by the time I get the award, I've forgotten about it. So recognition primarily is defined in 4 ways, and I'm going to talk about each of those 4. First is your day-to-day recognition programs. Second is formal. Third is informal. And fourth is approval-based. So day-to-day recognitions are like every day. So birthdays, anniversaries, you're having any activities in your organization, you're driving some celebrations, holiday gifting, all of those initiatives come under your day-to-day recognition. They're not related to any achievements of an individual. It is simply because of an event which is occurring in the organization. Second is formal, which is more formal in nature. In a formal recognition setup, again, I've split it across 3 parts. The first way of formal recognition is by awarding on certain KRAs or criterias or certain KPIs which I have, which I achieve, and then I receive those awards. For example, if I have certain incentives associated with grabbing a client, right? Or maybe I have certain incentives associated with driving innovation, or even things like referring other employees in the organization. Second is structured, which is often driven in a very hierarchical or structured manner in the organization. Like you give budgets, you divide your entire annual budget into different quarters, divide it among business units or processes, assign them to managers. Managers then get certain budgets in their kitty. Then they then forward these budgets to other managers, or they reward the employees from there. So that's more structured in nature, where you are predefining budgets for managers from before, so that your budgets don't overgo their limits. At the same time, you're giving the autonomy to managers to actually give the reward the way they want to give it. The third is significant awards for significant achievements. Now, these are rare in nature. They're not more common. Like structured recognition, your spot awards and regular awards are more common in nature. But significant awards are things like once in a year or once in a quarter, maybe employee of the month, employee of the year. Those are like when people go above and beyond what they're supposed to do. And those are like also very important when you're driving recognition solutions. Informal recognition is, like the name suggests, informal in nature. So these are typically non-monetary. They're typically not driven by managers. They're driven by peers. They're driven by your colleagues. So the first part of informal recognition is the peer-to-peer appreciation piece, where you're giving certain, say, how we used to give certain thank you cards or different cards to each other in the organization. You're digitizing that piece, where you're giving badges, or if you're giving kudos or thank yous to each other. What peer appreciation does is it really helps drive culture within the organization. Now, it's also important to keep it fresh. Like if I give you a thank you today, I give you a thank you tomorrow, I give you a thank you next week, it's going to get mundane over time. But if there are different opportunities for me to keep giving you certain appreciations, certain campaigns can be driven, certain initiatives can be created, I can maybe wish you a happy Lunar New Year. I can maybe, wish a woman, a colleague, a happy Women's Day. So, I could keep creating those initiatives over and over again to let employees wish each other in different ways, which are, not your standard thank yous. Second is celebratory. Celebratory is where I spoke about birthdays, anniversaries. You let employees wish each other. You create that culture in which there is a constant celebratory and wishing culture within the organization. Third is socialization of the recognition itself. Now, I give you an award, you know about it, I know about it, we're both happy, it's great. But I give you an award, the entire organization knows about it, it's amazing, right? So it's also important to socialize the fact that somebody has been recognized in the organization, and that's why it's important to create like a news feed or a digital wall where people who are getting recognized are constantly being celebrated, they're constantly being visible in the organization structure itself. The fourth is approval based. Now, these are a little different than your standard manager driven recognitions. Here, this is what I call as a maker checker model. So there are makers who kind of nominate other employees for awards, and then there are checkers. So there are approvers, and you could go like multi-level approvers that say your manager approves, then your regional head approves, and then your area head approves, or maybe, and then your CEO approves. What is important in approval-based awarding is to also keep it simple. We had a client once who created 13 approval matrices. So if I nominate a peer, it's gonna go through 13 approvals. So approver 1 approves, and then approver 2, and then approver 3, and then approver 4, and so on and so forth. So 13 people before somebody gets awarded. We, of course, strongly recommended against it, but they went ahead with it anyway, and within a month, they had to revert it back to 2 approval levels. So it's really, really important to not complicate it, because a lot of times when we're creating strategies, we're like, hey, how about this guy? He should also be involved. This person should also be involved. And then it just becomes so messed up eventually that the employee experience kind of gets reduced at that point in time. So once I've designed my recognition program, how do I execute these recognition responsibilities? Who's responsible for what? Is recognition just an HR's job? No. So how does it work? So this is an interesting research study I found by the American Management Association on job satisfaction, where what they did is they spoke to managers and then they spoke to employees that as a manager, what do you think is required by your team members to be more satisfied in the company? And as an employee, what is it that you need to be more satisfied? So what is interesting is that supervisors or managers, they feel that credit or recognition for the work done is second last in an employee's list for feeling satisfied in the organization. And job security is the second most important thing. But you talk to employees, it's exactly the opposite. So employees rate recognition at the topmost priority, that if I'm not even getting credit for the job which I'm doing, what is the point of working here? And job security, ironically, is the least important thing they're looking for in an organization. So the reason I pull this up is because there's a huge difference between the way managers think versus the way really employees think. So I wanted to all put your HR head and CHRO hats aside and start thinking from a ground level perspective, that what is it that you need? I mean, one of the funniest things is that the recognizing teams of HRs are mostly under-recognized themselves. So what is it that you need to feel more satisfied in your company? And that will probably resonate with what your employees think too. So how do we influence managers and leaderships to actually be participative and drive these recognition programs? So let's first talk about leadership. It's really, really important and highly, highly imperative for leaders to recognize more, because culture always starts at the top. Leaders need to walk their talk. We can keep talking about it, but if we don't recognize ourselves, whatever leaders do trickles down in the organization as an impact. And you've seen this everywhere, right? All companies have different cultures because the way leaders behave is how the rest of the organization behaves as well. It's also important for leaders to not lump recognition with feedback. And we've all been there, we've all done that, hey, you did a great job, but You could have done XYZ more. Now, the moment you add that but at the end of the sentence, that recognition's value is just gone, right? So don't lump recognition with criticism, but the reverse needs to be there. If you're criticizing, you should definitely recognize a bit. And also recognize in public, criticize in private, which is like one of the most obvious things. Also for leaders, it is important to make feedback a really, really important cultural value in the organization. As leaders, they're usually so way at the top that they're not in touch with the ground level staff. A leader doesn't understand what a fresher out of college or maybe a 1 year, 2 year experienced person is feeling, especially in large organizations. So taking constant feedback and ensuring that that information comes to the leadership is really, really important for employee satisfaction and hence better retention. And of course, we've all been there where we're like, oh, we're designing our R&R policy right now. It's going to take us 1 year, maybe, and then we'll deploy R&R. In that 1 year, you're going to lose out on such good talent. So don't wait for like your complete R&R platform to complete. Start small. Start with birthdays. Start with anniversaries. Start with peer thank you cards, kudos cards, something so that till the time we have your entire policy ready, you at least have done certain aspects to retain employees. From the management's perspective, what is the manager's role in driving R&R programs? One, employee recognition needs to be more personalized for managers. I tell, person A, good job, person B, good job, person C, good job, person D, good job. It doesn't make any difference. It has to be personalized why I am recognizing that particular person. Second, the relationship between a manager and an employee is the number of predicator for any job satisfaction. Most people leave their managers, they don't leave their companies. So driving manager-led recognitions becomes really, really important. What is the HR's influence on recognition? While of course, driving recognition is not just the HR team's job, they have certain responsibilities. One, we need to build a real team driving culture and driving recognition. We've all been there when there is a dearth of people in L&D. There is a dearth of people in, maybe hiring or talent management. The first teams which get, disinvolved or removed and put in these other projects is the culture team or the employee engagement team. That should not happen. The culture team and the employee engagement or employee maybe happiness team needs to be at the core of the organization and needs to increase and not decrease over time. As HRs, it is also important to recognize ourselves. If you're driving a program, use those ourselves. And of course, train managers, leadership, employees in the right manner so that they drive recognition and then it just doesn't fall upon our heads only. Now, how do we analyze the ROI of whatever R&R programs we've driven? So one of the most important things here is that your overall manager awarding rates need to be at least 95%. Your employee utilization of rewards needs to be at least 90%. I know we're all comfortable with those 40-50% numbers, but it needs to be within that particular range. Second, we need to identify things like employee satisfaction scores. We can also, and ESAT scores are interesting. I mean, instead of doing ESAT score calculation at the end of the year, set up a target for ESAT at the beginning of the year and let your HR team be aligned to that number and see the magic happen. Similarly, in terms of attrition rates, how do you know that your program has helped reduce attrition? Identify the cohort of people who've used your programs and the cohort of people who've never been recognized even once. See the attrition difference between both the cohorts, and if this cohort is attriting less, it means that your programs are actually working. So just to sum up the entire piece, in a hybrid culture, all your physical trophies, gifts, certificates, all of those need to go out. Everything needs to be digitized. You need to also replace all your physical activities with digital activities. Digitize wherever you can to drive a better communication and also build those communities within the organizations that people can feel more connected towards each other. So that's pretty much it for me today. And thank you so much for listening to me. I think we also have a Q&A session after this. It's right in the next hall. So if anyone has any questions, I'm there for the next 15 minutes. Would be happy to answer and also just chat, help you drive your own policies. No strings attached. We have a booth here. We're not going to sell to you. If you just need to chat and understand how do we help, create a better recognition program, happy to answer those questions. Thank you so much for listening to me today.
Let's have a huge round of applause for Smiti, everyone. Thank you, Smiti.